We can all sit here and lie to ourselves that the most important thing for a zombie game to be good is the story. And don't get me wrong, that can help. There's even some zombie games that you only really play for the story, but sometimes we just want to shut off our brains and senselessly destroy waves of undead. Of course, 99.999% of zombie games let you do this in a multitude of different ways. Dead Rising lets you use everyday items, Undead Nightmare lets you run them over with horses, Dying Light lets you parkour them to death, and Dead Island lets you kill them with boredom. But is there anything more satisfying than killing a zombie with a quickscope? I don't think so. Which is why, in my opinion, Zombie Army is the most satisfying zombie slaying experience on the market. Zombie Army was developed by Rebellion Developments, a British-based developer known for their fairly successful and popular Sniper Elite franchise, a series praised for its tense gameplay and allowing the player to shoot Hitler in his one singular bollock. And Zombie Army is a spin-off of the series, replacing the German soldiers and their fascist leader with zombie German soldiers and a zombie fascist leader. Zombie Army is one of those cult franchises that deserves more love and appreciation. It's not a very complicated or well thought out game, but there's something just so charming about the series that keeps you interested, and what could have easily been a very repetitive and boring style of gameplay is actually very fun and quite creative in some aspects. Anyone who hasn't played either Zombie Army Trilogy or Zombie Army 4 may be thinking, how can shooting slow moving zombies with a sniper be fun? Oh, you have no idea. Stealth in video games has never really been that interesting to me. I'm a simple guy. I prefer to just walk into a game and start blasting. Even though I am a god at sniping, I tend to use other guns in video games. Now add zombies into the mix and close-up shots of your bullets smashing their skulls to pieces, then you have my full attention. For some reason, video game developers and movie makers look at the events of World War II, the biggest and most devastating conflict in human history, and think, wow, wouldn't it be sick if we added zombies to this? Call of Duty is known for having the most popular version of this epic crossover, with its zombie mode that went from being a fun little bonus mode to transcending COD itself. But enough about that normie shit, we're talking about the real indie stuff today. Zombie Army Trilogy and Zombie Army 4. Dead War. Zombie Army Trilogy, despite sounding like 3 full-fledged games, is actually a package that includes all 3 DLC expansions for the second Sniper Elite game, and Zombie Army 4 is more of a full-fledged game. I feel like I have to split the video in 2 parts, one talking about Zombie Army Trilogy and the other focusing on Zombie Army 4, because they feel and act very differently. The events of Zombie Army Trilogy take place during April 1945. The Allied forces have managed to push the German army back to Berlin, and Hitler, realising he is on the brink of defeat, decides to pull an Uno reverse card and raises the dead to fight for Germany, which doesn't go to plan as the undead German troops start attacking fellow Germans, turning Berlin into an undead wasteland. The events of the first expansion basically involve the playable characters fighting their way through waves of undead at various locations in order to make it to an extraction point. Adolf goes sicko mode, smashes a guy's head in like a melon, and gets attacked by zombies. The second expansion involves the survivors going back to Berlin to find pieces of a magical artifact that is believed to have the ability to send the zombies back where they came from. However, even after grabbing all the pieces, the zombie army is still at full strength, especially now that Hitler has joined their ranks, which leads into the third expansion. With Hitler now guiding the zombie army, he plans on releasing the zombie hordes onto the rest of the world, and to stop him you must send him to hell. Yeah, the story is a little thin and doesn't really evolve into anything special until Zombie Army 4, although watching Adolf get sucked into hell was pretty entertaining. Sniper Elite is all about stealth and carefully choosing your targets as you slowly navigate around the level without drawing any attention to yourself, which are all mechanics that Zombie Army throws right out of the window. In my opinion, this is an aspect that makes a lot of iconic video game expansions so good, when they feel like completely different experiences to the main game they are a part of. Although Sniper isn't in the name, it is very much part of the game. The main weapon in your arsenal is your rifle, and it's used quite differently to how you would use it in a normal Sniper Elite game, whereas you would usually be prone on top of a roof slowly picking off enemies. It's important for you to be quick and decisive with your shots, as you can become quickly overwhelmed by the sheer number of undead out to get you, and camping in the same location makes this almost guaranteed. Constantly moving and taking enemies down as quickly as possible is the only way you stand a chance at surviving. Accuracy is also integral to victory, as headshots are the only way you can guarantee an enemy will stay dead, and snipers are your best bet of landing headshots. While quickscoping zombies is fun, the devs decided to give you a few more tools tools to help thin out the horde, like secondary weapons, sidearms, and explosives. At the beginning of every level, and inside every safe house, the player is able to customize their loadout with these different weapons, which all have their own stats and uses. Some snipers have a lot more range for those players who like to sit back and pick enemies off from afar, and others have a higher rate of fire but less range. The same goes for sidearms and secondaries, as the more powerful ones have more accuracy but less ammo, and the ones with a lot of ammo aren't too accurate but allow you to spray and pray. Like COD Zombies, Zombie Army Trilogy works off a point system but works a little differently. Although getting the most kills is the main goal for many players, stringing combos together is where you will get the big points. The bigger the combo, the bigger your score will be. However, missing a target will cause your combo to end, leaving you looking like a complete noob. Much like how you can pick your guns, you also get to pick some explosives to spawn in with, like grenades, dynamite, trip mines, and landmines. While grenades are of course more offensive weapons, the others can be used in a defensive role to help you hunker down in a location as the zombies start rolling in. Just be sure not to place all your traps next to each other, as if one goes off, they'll all go off. Ammo boxes, barrels, and other environmental hazards are also scattered throughout each level to help you take out groups of zombies. Again, just don't shoot them when you're too close. This game sounds easy enough, just shooting waves of Walking Dead guys, and yeah, I agree, that would be easy. Notice I say would, because there's a lot more to worry about than just the generic zombies. Like most zombie games, there are special infected that spice up the gameplay and keep you on your toes. The most notorious type for a lot of players has to be the Suiciders. These guys are stacked with dynamite and will charge at you from across the map at breakneck speeds, not stopping until either you kill them first or they get to you. I'm not sure what's more unsettling about these guys, their desire to kill you, or their blood-curdling screams that echo all around you as they charge. Zombie snipers also act as a way to give veteran sniper elite players PTSD, as they take vantage points on top of buildings, sniping any player they set their sights on. Killing them isn't very easy, as they often move position by jumping from building to building, so taking them out first is a priority, as they can be extremely devastating if left unchecked. Skeletons also make up a lot of the undead army, and while they don't look very dangerous, being all skinny and shit, they can only be killed if you damage their core. Unfortunately for any players, these aren't the only things you have to fight, as there are bigger and badder enemies out there to get you, wielding massive machine guns, pyromancy, necromancy, chainsaws, and the world's worst mustache. These aspects give the game some much needed challenge, and make Zombie Army great to play with friends. I mean, I imagine this is the case because I don't have any friends, but if I did, I would definitely ask them to play this. If I had to pick something I really didn't like about Zombie Army Trilogy, it would have to be the level design of the first two expansions, because all it really boils down to is fog, destroyed buildings, and sewer tunnels. Luckily, this wasn't the case in the third expansion, as the levels have a lot more variety to them, and it overall feels more like a full-fledged game, as it has NPCs, somewhat of an actual story, and an epic final boss, and I was happy to see Zombie Army 4 continue in this direction. Zombie Army 4, without a doubt, is the strongest of the two games in the series. Zombie Army 4, subtitled Dead War, takes place around a year after the events of Trilogy. While the protagonists of Trilogy managed to send Hitler to hell, the zombie army is still at large across Europe and other parts of the world, and the Resistance have set up bases across the globe in order to fight back the hordes in a seemingly never-ending war. However, recently the zombies have started getting more powerful and frequent, which leads to the discovery of crazed cultists wanting to bring Hitler back to Earth. Sounds like the plot from one of them C-list films you find sitting in a charity shop. The story feels a lot more fluid and thought out this time around thanks to a number of factors. Although Zombie Army Trilogy had characters in the form of playable characters and a few NPCs in the final expansion, they weren't exactly well written. This time around, playable characters actually interact with the world around them, quipping and reacting to events as well as actually acknowledging the NPCs. Each campaign in the game also has multiple NPCs, which makes the world feel less sandboxy than Trilogy and more engaging. I was a big fan of the tone of Zombie Army Trilogy. Though the maps were repetitive, the level designs were still decent, and the music gave the game an eerie and cheesy tone, and Dead War doubled down on both of these ideas. Since Germany has turned to shit at this point in the story, it made sense from both a narrative and creative point of view to set the game in a different location. Each campaign feels different from the last, thanks to the use of varying level design designs, and environments. It makes Dead War feel so much larger in terms of depth and scale, and it really shows how far this series has come from being an experimental bonus DLC for a game based on hardscoping. Dead War feels very different to the original Zombie Army trilogy, due in part to both its gameplay and tone. Several changes were made to the mechanics of the game to make it feel like a different experience. The core features are there, however enough has been tweaked to make it feel different and yet better than it's ever been. Combat feels so much more satisfying and fun thanks to an overhaul in the movement mechanics, but also to the new abilities and perks available to the player. Sniping feels pretty much the same. I mean, they kind of aced it anyway in Zombie Army Trilogy, but secondaries have definitely been improved and feel a lot more viable to use throughout a level. While I personally love the gameplay of Trilogy, I can understand why some would call it repetitive, but Dead War gives you so much choice in the form of perks and abilities that you can upgrade and change to suit your playstyle. This lends itself to the biggest change in the game, which is the leveling up system. This brand new system allows for so much more variety, as the player is constantly getting rewarded for playing the game, encouraging them to continue playing and unlocking everything available. Zombie Army Trilogy was bare bones with what it offered the player in terms of objectives. Each level was pretty much getting from A to B while killing zombies, and if you wanted something else to do, you could find gold bars and shoot bottles, but that didn't really have any effect on the gameplay, besides momentarily distracting you from doming zombies. Dead War packs even more stuff into each level, like tons of new collectibles that actually reward you with unlockable items if you find enough, bonus objectives that grant you bonus XP, and hidden secrets that give the game a fun B-movie feel. The leveling up system was possibly the greatest decision they could have made when making this game, because it not only acts as an incentive to play, you actually get rewarded for all the zombie killing you're doing, and there's plenty more this time around, including zombie tanks, blind zombies, creepy zombies, flame zombies, and spitters. Attachments and weapon upgrades also let you deck out your tools of mass destruction with unique bonus damaging effects, increased range, and rate of fire. Stuff like this makes the combat that much more interesting. As well as this, there's also additional special weapons that decimate hordes, one-time use attachments that add a bonus damage effect to any of your 3 main weapons, and new traps and explosives like electric grenades, fire mines, bait grenades, and artillery strikes that make the gameplay that much more exciting and chaotic. There's no doubt that Zombie Army 4 smashes it out of the park with most of its features. The gameplay's great, the tone is great, testicle shots are even more satisfying. It's almost a perfect experience, but the sheer amount of microtransactions in this game really turns my stomach. It's a good job there are perks and attachments in the game for a little bit of variation, because without them, the gunplay would start to get very boring. Zombie Army Trilogy, excluding all the special weapons, had 18 guns available to you. With the base version of Zombie Army 4, there's only 13 guns available. It may not seem like a big drop off, but when you realise that a lot of the guns from Zombie Army Trilogy are locked behind a paywall in Zombie Army 4, then it becomes an issue. With all the great features put into this game, I don't understand how this got through. Well, I can, because obviously it's to make money, but it's just such a scummy way of going around it. Like how most of the characters from the first game are also locked. It just feels like the franchise has regressed slightly, which is severely out of place in this great game. Despite some of these glaring problems, Zombie Army has come a long way since being a strange mashup for an expansion, but I'm not complaining. Some of the greatest DLCs ever focus around zombies, and I just hope that we one day get another entry in the Zombie Army series, maybe one set in the UK. Now that would be epic.
Oh, you twat, you just shot me in the bollocks.